everybody. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series, where I have great, amazing podcasters from around the world come on as my guest co-host to talk about what they're doing in podcasting. I want you to fall in love with my guest because she's amazing. She's all about community and podcasting, and I have totally fallen in love as probably one of the only Canadians that arrive on a regular basis, but I'm there. And I get to hear some beautiful accents, pick up on some new words like a proper job, where I would say a full-time job. I get to learn all these great things, and I've learned about tea as dinner. There's so many things you're going to learn. And Vic's here. I'm so excited to have Vic on the show as my guest co-host. I just love everything that Vic does with Charles and the team over there in the UK. So, Vic, welcome to the How to Podcast series as my guest co-host. Glad to have you here.
Dave, are you saying that you've fallen in love with me?
I have fallen in love with you and your amazing friends.
I am blushing. This is an audio first podcast, but I am blushing right now.
You are my pod girlfriend. How about that? How's that? We'll do that?
I love
there
it.
You go.
Yes.
I love it. Okay.
It's official.
It's official. There he is. It's recorded, everyone. It's great. It's so good to have you here. Tell everybody, Vic, where are you in this big world of ours?
In this big world of ours, I'm on a little island called the UK. I'm going to say called the Great Britain, called the UK. I'm in England. I'm in a little northern town called Manchester. So we're up north. For anyone that's listening that knows England, we are about 2 hours away from London. And what I do, you alluded to it there very nicely, Dave, is I run a community for podcasters called Mike's Podcast Club, and I co-run it with a fabulous podcaster called Charles Cummins. And what it is it's a really supportive network for podcasters to learn from one another. And so you're a member of it. We've just hit 1,500 members from across the world.
What?
I know. Did it yesterday. I was so chuffed.
Right.
Chuffed means happy, by the way. There's going to be a lot of translations in the next half hour or so.
Good.
And started in 2018. And at that time, I noticed that the support, and we talked about this prior, David, the support for podcasters that was around then and probably still happens, it was contradictory. So you want to start a podcast, and this is the reason why you started this wonderful podcast, Dave, is the information is very contradictory. It can be confusing. And sometimes in certain groups and certain circles, it can be unkind. Like someone will say, "What mic do I use?" And you'll go, "Oh, you use this mic. You use this mic. What are you doing using that mic?" And it becomes a bit like, "Oh God," because it becomes a bit of like not a nice place that you want to start a podcast. So I thought I'd love to create a community where it's kind. There's no knobheads. It's based on advice from other podcasters. So I always say, Mike's Podcast Club is a place to learn from the experts. And the experts are the people that are podcasting day in and day out, the indie creators. So it started in a room above a pub in Manchester in late 2018. And it was designed to be a physical event, like person to person. We meet every couple of months and swap ideas and whatnot. And then that COVID thing happened and it forced us all online. And so it was really good for Mike's Podcast Club because we got international indie creators like yourself, Dave, coming along. Hello, representing Canada. And it then shaped us into a monthly meetup for podcasters. Second Wednesday of every month. And it's like how would you describe it, Dave?
It's a family.
Yeah.
It is a family. When people come in, and I know that means something to you, for sure.
It does. Like, do you see me nearly cry?
It does. I know. It is a family because people care about each other. People aren't stepping on each other. People aren't talking over each other. There's a lot of love in that room, even though we're virtual. There's just so many great characters, too, that there's little jokes that if you've been there for more than one or two meetings, you're going to pick up on these little inside jokes, and you're going to see them happen, and you're going to laugh. It's just, there's an accountability, too, as well, because again, as podcasters, we do a lot of this stuff on our own, and we feel lonely, and we feel like we're not making a difference. So to be in a room with people who love podcasting, we talk to our partners, our spouses, our family, and we talk podcasting. Their eyes roll in their head like, here's Vic in the podcast again, whatever. Right? But when you get around a bunch of people who love what you do, you don't have to explain anything, right? And we can learn from each other. That's what I love the best.
You make a great point, because that's what I love about podcasting and Mike's Podcast Club is that we would never be in a room. I would never be in a room with a Canadian, a guy from Utah, a guy who presents a footballing podcast, one that does a podcast about Cold War, one that does a podcast about other histories, girls that are doing podcasts about tech and about inspiring people from Manchester. We would never have the opportunity to be in the same room together, swapping advice and supporting each other. And that common link, that golden thread that runs through all of us, is that passion for podcasting, that passion to grab the mic. And I think how podcasting is afforded us the opportunity is so powerful. And again, like you say, we work in silos as podcasters. I mean, I can't tell you about the number of times that I have been sat here editing in my office and looked up, and I've been so in the moment. I've looked up and I'm sat in the dark, and the cat's looking at me. The cat wants feeding, he's starving, and I've just been on my own. And then to come together every month with just a bunch of good eggs and kind people that can help you along the way and there's nothing quite like Mike's Podcast Club. Like, the format is pretty unique, and I really do, and me and Charles really do pride ourselves on the fact that everyone is kind as well. Do you feel that, Dave, when you come along?
Yeah, 100%. I felt welcome from the very first time I came in. I think the one thing was I was called out, and because I was a new person at the meetup, and it's like, welcome, Dave. Can you tell us, do you have a podcast? And I'm like, I have 8. And they're like, oh, you've got 8 episodes. That's wonderful. I'm like, no, I have 8 different podcasts. Right? And the looks, people are looking down, and then they all look up at the camera like, did he just say 8?
Yeah.
Right? It was really funny to see that happen. But I love, the one thing I love, Vic, people come in, there's people there that have been doing this a lot longer than I have. There's people here who have way more success than I've ever had in podcasting, but nobody makes you feel like you're not good enough to participate.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome. Everyone's encouraged to speak. There's no bad questions. There's none of that. It's really this loving, giving environment where people can just ask questions and listen to other people and connect. And I love when people connect like we're doing outside of the group as well. That's a huge benefit to podcasting community, is now you have somebody that you can email, you can reach out to and have a conversation with, have them on your show. I just love the fact that this community grows beyond above the pub with a few people to, like you said, a global thing. And then being able to do life with each other. It's just so great.
Yeah, you're making my little heart sing at the minute, Dave, with all that. But I love that. And me and Charles always say that we're not the owners of the community, and we're not the bosses of the community. We're the captains of the ship. Like, we help steer it. And those magical moments of those collaborations that happen beyond. So we might have engineered that. We might have created the Zoom room to enable that spark to happen, the catalyst, should we say. But I know you've been very generous in the chat and offering people guides and how-tos on Audacity. And we've had collaborations happen. We've had people guest on each other's podcasts. We've had sponsorship that's come as a result of people coming to Mike's Podcast Club. We've even had people getting paid work as a result of people coming to Mike's Podcast Club. So all that is why I started it. And I think community, the generation of community in nowadays, especially when we're living in climates where are uncertain climates, the power of community can only be a good thing. And I encourage podcasters to think about, and if they want to, and that's the direction they want the podcast to go, is how can you generate a community around your podcast too?
I think my guide to building a community around your show, Vic, I kind of my three things I think of is you got to have some way for your listener to put their hand up and go, I listen to Vic's podcast. Somehow they have to be able to do that. Social media, email, newsletter, website. Somehow, as a listener, I need to identify to you, I listen to your show. That's the first step. The second step is to have a conversation with the host. Now I'm not just telling you I listen, but now I'm speaking to you. I have some kind of dialogue with the host of the show. That's the next level of engagement. And then the third is to have community where I get together with other people who listen to the same show that I listen to, and we do life together in community. I think those are the three really solid ways for you to build community around your show. And if you only do like people identifying themselves, hi Vic, I listen to your show, but you never do anything with that, I think you're missing an opportunity to build this really strong relationship and community around your show. And my encouragement to anybody that comes to your meetup is to don't come to get something from this meetup. Come to give something to this meetup. Come to contribute. Don't come to take. Like, sure, you're going to gain wisdom, you're going to learn, you're going to get all this great stuff coming back to you, but that shouldn't be the intent. Mm-hmm. When you reach out to join a community, what can I offer? How can I be a service? How can I be a support to the organizers, to the community? I'm not coming in to sell anything. I'm not trying to get clients. I'm here to serve the community. I think that should be your heart when you're reaching out to find your podcast community that works for you. How can you serve the community? How can you make it better by being there? And sometimes it's just being in the room and just being a support to people. That's it. Giving them attention, giving them love and support. That's all you need to do. But come with the heart of giving instead of taking.
Nice. It's a two-way thing, isn't it? Definitely. I think there's a fourth. You mentioned the three, like, I see it's like a wheel with three wheels of community. I think for a podcaster, there's the fourth wheel. And this comes, no, is it the fourth cog? I'm thinking.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The fourth slice of the pie. And this comes later on. This is not a, you create a community. It's a nurture thing with the community because they can be quite fragile. It's not an easy thing to build a community. But the fourth thing, I think, is then you can make the community work for you. And I don't mean putting them on the payroll, but I mean, how then can you mobilize that community to maybe generate an income? It could be, you could be selling merch, you could be doing a Patreon, you could be doing a live show. But don't go into creating a community with that fourth thing as the main thing that you want to do. That comes naturally. So that shouldn't be forced, that end bit, but that's an interesting thing that a community can bring to you as a podcaster.
And I know that you have this for your group. I have it for my group. But there's always a way to support financially. On top of organizing the event, scheduling the events, running the events, doing all the community stuff behind the scenes, there's a cost to the leaders of these groups. And as participants, sometimes we forget that, hey, I'm coming for free. You're not charging me to come to this event. But there is a cost. So keep in mind as you participate in all of these amazing online groups that you can contribute back. If you find value in it, we talk about value for value in podcasting. There's value for value in community. If you're getting something out of this, please, I'm encouraging to consider giving back financially to help. Because I know for me on my meetups, I have to pay the monthly fee. And that's what comes out of my
not
bank
cheap.
account. Right? It's not cheap at all.
Not cheap at all.
So as you contribute and as you participate, if you're finding value, please consider giving back. Because I think that's it's an encouragement to the host of the event, and it also helps the event continue.
It helps the community continue as well. I mean, we've got a line, what we say at our meetups is that we always give you the number of how many meetups we've done, and we'll say if you want to help us to continue to put on, I think we're on our 78th event, if you want to continue to put on events with podcasters, and it's like £4 or something. We do it through buy me a coffee. Me and Charles call it buy me a brew though, because we're quite English and northern about it. And we always say as well, we make a point by saying that we do it. Me and Charles run podcast production companies, so we make podcasts for people every day, but we do it independently of our work. So we could, So it's a volunteering thing. And someone said to me recently, well, why do you do it? Are you getting clients through it? And I said, well, I don't do it to get clients through it. It's not that wasn't why it's not a sales funnel for me. It's not a, we talk about funnels and all that marketing gubbins. It's not a sales funnel for me. I do it because I genuinely love bringing people together and bringing kind souls together to help each other. And if you wanted to be posh about it, you could call it a peer-to-peer podcasting network. But I call it like a youth club for podcasters.
Yeah, I like it. So podcasting-wise, outside of our great meetups that we love to do on a regular basis, what are you excited about coming down the road, Vic, as far as the podcasting community and where we're heading in podcasting?
Just tell you what scares me.
Oh, let's talk about that. Yes.
Video.
Really? Okay. For what reason?
So when I was little, once upon a time, many moons ago, when I was little, I was obsessed by radio. I loved radio. I loved it. I couldn't believe that someone was getting paid to speak into a microphone, play good tunes, and bring joy to people's kitchens, bedrooms, cars. And I was like, bloody hell, I want some of this. I want some of this. And so that's what I did. From when I left school, went to college, went to university, and did media production, and all I ever wanted to do was work in radio. And I just loved the medium of audio. I loved playing with audio, loved making nice things for people's ears. And that's why I got into podcasting, because I bloody love audio. Like podcasting, when I left school 25 years ago, podcasting wasn't even a job. Like I'm doing a job that didn't exist when I was little. But so I love audio, and very early on in my career, and I'm going to be really honest now to your listener. Very early on in my career, I did some video production, did some work for a production company, did some work with video at uni, worked on productions, and I decided that I didn't like it. I didn't like video. Didn't like the making of it. It was boring, and I didn't want to. And I just thought, you find the one. It's when you find the love of your life. You're like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. That's my passion. That's what I want to do. Right. And so, the lean towards video now is it's creating a bit of a tension with me, because I'm like, I don't want to do it. I really like audio. So for the future, my podcast company is Audio First. Okay. Leaning into our audio expertise.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've probably read loads, Dave, of conversations about video and video shows. And whether there's two arguments, isn't there? Whether you do a video show that's the same as your audio show. So the audio is pulled from your video show, or you do, and the argument's going towards doing a completely different video show that's a production on its own. And that comes with higher production values, more complicated process, more skills to learn, and more kit, really. My production company is all about making podcasting easy and simple and creating an impact with not that much equipment. So I run a not-for-profit podcast production agency. So I think for the time being, like I say, we're gonna double down on our audio first. What are your thoughts on video? That wasn't very coherent. I'm sorry. That was a bit of me.
No, I was with you. The one thing I push back on in podcasting is if anybody says that you have to do something to podcast, that seems like a barrier, right? Yeah. You have to do video. Well, no, you don't have to do video. You can do video. If you're a video first person coming to podcasting and you have all the gear and equipment and everything and the knowledge and talent to do video, I wouldn't tell you to not do video, because you're already naturally doing it and you're really good at it. So do video, but don't neglect the audio. Don't neglect the audio audience, right?
Exactly.
I like an approach where our content complements each other. So we can do an audio podcast, which goes out to all the audio players around the world. It's one click. It's distributed with one click, and off it goes. I like that. I like then doing a video component that supports what I do in audio, but it's slightly different and tailored to the video platform. So it might be shorter. I might do a 45-minute audio podcast and a 20-minute video version where I do a kind of like a summary or a recap or the best of the best without the 45 minutes. I don't really like the idea of doing it one thing and spreading it everywhere, because you're not going to do a great job, because every platform is just a little bit different. And they seem to value you coming to the platform and using the tools that they have. TikTok wants you to use TikTok tools. Instagram wants you to use Instagram tools. YouTube wants you to use the YouTube tools. They don't want you to come with something that's already complete and just plaster it everywhere and just, it's the same thing everywhere. And
it's like if you were going to post on Facebook, post on Instagram, post on Twitter, you'd post different things on each platform. You wouldn't copy and paste a Facebook message and put that on Twitter. Sorry, X. It's different audiences, and it's different format, isn't it?
And keep in mind that some of your community follows you on different platforms themselves. So they might already follow you on Instagram and X and Facebook, and they're seeing the same message 3 times. They're like it doesn't fit the format. So I like doing something that complements the audio. Be audio first, especially if as a new podcaster. If you don't have a video background, buying all the equipment and learning how to use it all, and the cost to make video edits and have this finished production, the costs alone are expensive. So you're gonna bury yourself in work, and you're gonna give up. I already have a full-time job. I don't need another full-time job to be a video editor for a podcast, right? And the other thing to keep in mind too is not every book, Vic, is a movie.
Exactly.
Right? How many books come out every day? Are they getting a message going, wait a minute, you wrote a book, Vic? Well, it won't be successful unless you have a movie.
Exactly.
What?
So I say this argument as well. There's a very popular audio soap in England called The Archers, and it's been going for years and years and years and years and years. I'll get the correct date for you, but probably about 50 years it's been going for. And it's only on for about 15 minutes. It's about a little farming community somewhere down south. But no one's ever said, that'd be better as a live action TV soap. Right. I mean, that survived for 50 odd years being a audio only soap. So you're right. That's a really good point.
And the same for music. You write a song, you put the song out in the world, and you're like, well, where's the music video? Why do I have to have a music video? I know they're popular back in the day, MTV and all that, but do I really have to have a video for my song? Can't the song just be fine on its own? Back to the radio, right? The radio, when we listen to radio, as listeners, we get to make up in our own mind what's happening based on our experience. There's no visual. We get to think about what we put the song in our context, or the words in our context. When they talk about going into your grandmother's kitchen, I'm going in my grandmother's kitchen. You're going in your grandmother's kitchen, and they're different. So a video makes me kind of fit into, this is what I want you to think about. I like audio where I get to think about whatever I want to think about.
That is my favourite thing about audio, is that what you can conjure in your imagination and where you can place the listener. Because with audio, you are your listener's eyes. And I think, especially when I'm listening to audio documentaries or dramas or fiction or even interviews, it's that exploration of the imagination that audio can bring. And I think that's really powerful, and I think that's really exciting. And that's one of the other reasons why I blooming love audio, is especially when I can get creative creating podcasts and putting maybe wild tracks behind people speaking, or recording in the field, not in a field, but in the field. Yeah. I love that.
It's that theater of the mind.
Theater of the mind.
Your listener, right? Letting your listener just go wherever they want to go.
I love that.
I like that. So for me, I think video is going to continue to be popular. Video is promoted by video platforms as important, right? They'll have the top, video reached 1 million views on Spotify, sponsored by Spotify. Like, it's kind of like their stat that they created. And it's like, well, obviously you're going to make that better, right? So I don't know. As a consumer, my phone is in my pocket. Even if it's a video podcast, my phone is in my pocket. I listen at work. I can't look at my screen. I have to focus on my job or my employer is not going to be happy with me standing there watching this video on my phone. No, get to work, Dave. Like, what are you doing? But I can put one earbud in and listen to a podcast at work and I'm fine. The other thing, I actually had a company on, they have a podcast app for children called Kids Pod. And the idea is there's no screens.
Screen-free fun.
Screen-free for kids. They can go play and then listen to a podcast for kids. So there's absolutely no video on their platform. And I'm like, oh, see? Well, there you go. There's a need for people to not have to do video. We have people that are visually challenged and they can't see, but they can hear. So a video-first platform doesn't make any sense for them. Are we neglecting them in this passion for video? Like, what about our community? Our community is so diverse and vast. Audio seems to be one of the things that can reach a wide variety of people. And it can also be translated into transcriptions, which can help people who can't even hear the show, right? And I just think this passion for video, I don't know if it's a trend. I don't know how long it's going to last as this subject of conversation, but audio has been that constant all the time from way back at the beginning to today. It's still valuable. So I love audio first.
Yeah. I think one of the points there as well, one of the reasons why I'm a strong advocate for audio as well is that I feel that particularly with the type of podcasts that I create, I'm much like you, Dave. I'm not doing celebrity podcasts. I'm not doing podcasts with famous people. I'm not doing podcasts with people that are media trained. Most of the time we're speaking to normal, extraordinary people. And sometimes they've never had a microphone in their face. And to get used to, I'm reaching for my microphone now, my prop microphone, to have that in your face, it's easy to get used to. And it's sort of easy to ignore after a bit and you can have a really honest conversation. If we think about having a camera in your face, that's another level of, and it can make people nervous. People can be worried about what they look like, especially if we're talking to young people or neurodiverse people, communities. And so having that camera there might become a barrier to having more open, honest and authentic conversations as well. Mm-hmm. I think I'm with you in your camp, David. It's like, explore video, but how can it fit in? I'm going to start there.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't do video, but does it fit with your budget? Does it fit with your time? Does it fit with your audience? Can you be asked? If you're recording video anyway, maybe you're remote recording your conversations like we are, Dave, on Zoom or Riverside or Squadcast, and there's a video element. Can you use the tools that they have on those platforms to create clips for promotional uses or to clip down your interview into a video?
Right. That'll bring people to the podcast. And again, it's a companion.
Yeah.
It's not just take the podcast as it is and post it on YouTube, Two Talking Heads. I don't know. When I look at my engagement for Two Talking Heads on YouTube compared to all of the other amazing videos on YouTube, I don't see the same retention. I don't see people staying to the end.
No.
So all that work and effort to create a video podcast with all the fancy everything for very small results. Again, I have a job. I have to go to work. So I have only so much time to do editing. I can edit an audio podcast and get it out to the world. And then when I have time, do video. But I just think if video is the one thing that's going to keep you from podcasting and everyone's told you you have to do video to be a podcaster, I'm scared to say no. You can do audio. Learn to find your voice. Learn how to get comfortable speaking without worrying about a camera, having to get all made up. I've talked to some women, Vic, that come on the show, and they're like, if I had to do video, I would never do video. Right? There's no way I would do it. I've had people come on my author podcast. They write under a pen name, and they write about topics that would put them in harm's way if their video was shown. So they're like, hands over the camera, black screen. I cannot be on video. If I go on video, they're going to find who I am. Right? So I'm like, obviously, we're not going to release the video. So right there, like, is that person allowed to be a guest on a podcast? For their safety, they can't be on video? Well, you have to do video. Rah, rah, rah. No, you don't. Relax. You can just do audio. and be fine with that, right?
That's a really good point, because I have interviewed people in very vulnerable positions before, and I wouldn't never ever have had access if I'd have said, right, come in with my video camera. No, it would have been out of the question, and I wouldn't have got the most compelling, beautiful bits of tape that I had if I'd have rocked up with a little camera. So, you're saying then that you've got a job and you're busy, and you've only got a certain window to fit in making podcasts. You've just launched your 9th podcast, Dave.
Okay, yes. Is this an intervention right now? Are we having an intervention?
I think me and your wife need to have an intervention. We need some sort of support group. We've got one, Mike's Podcast Club.
Okay, Vic, I love and trust you. Let's go. What do you want to talk about?
So, I do podcast training. So I teach people how to create their own podcasts. And one of the biggest barriers people tell me when they want to create their own podcast is, I've not got time. And look at you, Miss Fancy Pants, with your 9 podcasts, and also a full-time job.
Full-time job at nights. I work overnights, and then I'm off during the daytime.
A family.
A family, 3 adult children.
Dogs, cats.
2 dogs, a cat, and a turtle.
And you're fitting in. So what is the frequency of these podcasts? Are they weekly?
2 of them are 3 times a week.
What?
Yeah, 2 of them are. Several of them are once a week. Some are twice a month. And one is a podcast that is primarily for December. It's a children's podcast called the Daily Santa Podcast. So technically it's live. It's not pod faded because I didn't release an episode today. It's a live podcast that's seasonal. So it's truly seasonal because it's for Christmas. So yeah, so that one I do updates on it during the year, but primarily it stays dormant 11 months of the year, and then December it just boom takes right off. So
yeah, so it's very seasonal.
Yeah,
very seasonal. So when we create a podcast, it's not just rocking up and pressing play and going blah 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 blah. We've got to plan it. If we've got guests on, we've got to do, and you're brilliant at this, you've got to do the pre-call. So we call them before and have a little chat with them. So that takes time. We've got to organise some time with them. That takes time. We've got to do the recording. We've got to edit it, and we've got to distribute and do a little bit of marketing as well. So there's so much things that goes into creating a podcast. It actually blows my little mind that you're doing 9 that have got multiple episodes a week. So can you reveal to our dear listener, what is your workflow? Have you got someone to help you?
No, just me. Yeah, I'm doing it all myself. I try. So like, okay, let's give an example today. We're recording, Vic, you and I. So when we're done here, I have 6 other recordings today to do. So that's my day today. I'm starting my day. It's only 11 in the morning. So I have 6 more to do after this. What I do in between is I do all the basic stuff to prepare the recording for editing in between my meetings. Because it just happened. It's live in my mind. I can remember everything that just happened. So I do some basic stuff, get it ready. If my guest is joining me with really bad audio, I've got tools to make it sound better. So I run it and do all that stuff in the background while I'm doing my next interview. Oh. So my computer's doing all this other stuff for me while I'm doing the next thing. So I have some tools that run in the background. I'm using Audacity for my audio. I've created some tools that run in the background so I can give it an audio file, and Audacity will do things for me while I'm doing something else. So that's kind of nice. And it's like kind of like in Microsoft, you could have a macro, which was like a recording of steps that you do all the time in order. And you can just run a macro and it'll do all these things. Audacity has the same thing. You can just run these programs, run these steps, and you do the same thing every time. So every piece of audio goes in that little tool. It runs in Audacity while I'm doing something else. So I could be doing my emails. I could be doing my artwork in Canva. I do all that stuff. My website updates. I do all that stuff. So something's always happening in the background. I'm not only doing one thing at one time. So that's kind of my in-between. I do pre-interviews for every guest. So for my Living the Next Chapter podcast, 530 episodes in 3 years. That's got, that I've had over 1,000 pre-interviews as well. So I always pre-interview my guests and then record on a different day. So that's just one show. And that's 3 times a week.
You've had more pre-interviews than you've had guests.
Yeah, because I talked to them twice. So it's 1,000 times roughly, right? Yeah. So, and then How to Podcast, same thing. I do a pre-interview for all those people. So that's a double. So how many episodes I have with a guest, multiply that by 2. So that's all happening in the background. And well, I talk to about 20 to 25 people a week is kind of my normal week for pre-interviews and recordings.
I know this is audio only, but my eyes just like popped out of my head then.
Yeah. So, and then what I do is I leverage YouTube because I have more content than I'm allowed to post to my hosting site. I use YouTube as a pre-advance listen. So I put up a static image. I know everybody hates them, but I put up a static image post with a new thumbnail for my guest on YouTube in advance of the audio going out later. So right now, living the next chapter, recording this in March, I already have all my episodes loaded to the beginning of May right now, 3 times a week. All done, all finished, just waiting to go live. So if I took my hands off the wheel or went on holidays, you'd have no idea. Because every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a new episode, all the way to May. And so if I record a new episode today with my guest later today, their episode's not going to be live till May. So what I do is I record it, do a static image, post it to YouTube in advance, and my guest has a link today or tomorrow from the episode we recorded right now. They'll have a link right away. So it's live for them. They can share it, put it on their newsletter, because my guests really get annoyed waiting for months and months for this to go live. So I give them an advance. It's a real podcast, the whole thing. And then they have it. They can share it on the newsletter and off they go. So there's no wait time, really. So that's kind of how I do that show. And for me, it really works. And then what happens is when the podcast goes live on Apple and Spotify and Audible and AfroPods, it also goes live to my YouTube channel. I've connected those as well, so we can do that. And I just simply make that first episode that was an advanced listen an unlisted video. It's still live. The link still works. And I put it in an archive folder on my playlist on YouTube. And then the real one that's been released with all the other ones becomes the actual one with a new link. I email my guests back all their artwork for Instagram and Facebook. I give them a link to Podlink so they can have all linked to choose from all the different apps for audio podcast. And I give them their new YouTube link and give them a thank you email saying thanks for being on the show. So they know it's live everywhere. It can be shown on every app everywhere around the world. And then I just give them all the new links. So that's kind of my behind the scenes. And that'll happen about a month or 2 after the recording. That's my whole process.
And so I guess you've had to be really, what's the word I'm thinking of? You've had to be really streamlined with the editing process. So you are not, through experience, you've learned not to focus too much on the editing. Is it pretty a lightweight edit? Light touch, sorry, the word is?
Yeah, well, last week I had somebody on my show, and they were an amazing guest, super fun to talk to. They were an machine. I think I cut out 100 ums.
You did that manually?
5-minute manually.
Wow.
And you could see them on your screen after a while. You're
I
can just pick them. I don't even have to listen. I'm like, cut. So at the end of the day, I gave it to my wife, Jennifer, to listen to, and she's like, I couldn't hear a single cut. Good.
That is the hallmark of a great editor, is you don't know, you don't realize they've been there.
Yeah. And so I want my guests to sound amazing. This was their first time on an interview as a guest on a podcast. They've never done it before. Super nervous. I knew that because we had a pre-interview. So I knew I was kind of up against this ahead of time. And when we chatted, they were an machine when I met them. So I already knew that I'm going to have extra work for this podcast. So that's kind of how I approach it. So yeah, sometimes they're heavy edits. Sometimes they're pretty easy.
I really love the automation. When we read any productivity, and I get a few of these productivity bollocks newsletters, and they always, one of the key things is automation. There's like 3 things, there's 4 things to be more productive. There's delegation, automation, and forgetting about it, I think, like sacking it off. And I think if you've not got a way to delegate, which you haven't, is then how can you automate what you're doing? And I think in today's fantastical, technologically advanced world that we live in, that's easier than ever, isn't it?
And the idea is that I can go do something else while my computer's doing something for me. So I can run that automation on my track to fix the audio levels, balance all the EQ while I'm going over to grab a coffee or to let my dogs go outside or feed the cat and come back, and it's all done for me. So everything is about using the time I have to the best of its ability. So when people tell me I don't have time for a podcast, I just ask them like, well, what else do you do all week? Well, I watch Netflix and I'll watch, 7 episodes in a row. I'm like, can you cut that down to 2? Because you just gained some time, right? So maybe there's some time value that you just are unaware of. So for me, I don't watch TV anymore. Maybe 1 hour a week, where I used to watch hours and hours with my wife, Jen. But it just doesn't, I know I can get something else done in that moment. So I'm going to just go down to my computer and start editing. So
for your poor wife's like, please, Dave, can we watch The Sopranos? Nope, I've got another podcast to launch.
I got to tell you, Vic, she loves the break. She's like, go do your thing. This is awesome. It's great for my marriage. Yeah. So
podcasts have saved my marriage. That's a T-shirt.
There you go. Right. I love it. So Vic, tell everybody about the podcast group again, and kind of how do we find it? Like, where do we go? We'll put links, but how do we find it if we want to come and join in on your group and be a part of the community? But we really want to promote that as well before we run out.
Yeah. It's enough of talking about Dave.
Come on, that's enough.
Dead easy to find. We are on meetup.com. So go to meetup.com/Mike pod. That's meetup.com/MICPOD.
And once a month we get together.
It is. Can you remember what it is? It's the second Wednesday of every month, apart from August, because we go on our holidays.
And then for me in Canada, it's like morning time.
Yeah, so it's 6 p.m. English time. So then whatever that is equivalent in your local time zone.
And you get to hear about fish and chips. You get to hear about, again, tea is dinner, which I find great.
Only in the north of England, that's right.
Right,
so,
and a proper job.
Yeah, so...
You're going to hear all of these great words, and I'm like, I just love this. I know I don't have an accent in Canada. I'm like accent-free, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I love meeting everybody there. It's such a great family, and I encourage everyone to come and check it out. It's free to join, but I'm encouraging you to donate, please. But it's free to join. Come and listen and be a part of the community. It's such a great conversation.
We would love to have you, yes. So if you've got a podcast and you're looking for a supportive community, a bunch of good eggs to have you back. I think what's been lovely, especially in recent ones, is someone's come with a problem and we've almost been like their buddies and gone, come on, you can do this. You can. It's made me, when we finish at 8 o'clock at night and I've got my tea in the oven and I'm thinking, that was so lovely. That was wholesome, and it just makes my heart tingle, because that's exactly what I set out for Mike's Podcast Club to be, and it's just an absolute joy to welcome you every week, every month as well, Dave. You're a really valued member of our community. We should get you. I have got a sticker. I might post a sticker to Canada.
Yeah, I would love it. Good, but I got to say one thing about a good community. A great community is based on great leaders. You and Charles demonstrate great leadership in our group. You help and give. So the fact that you're seeing all this great things happening in your community is because of the two of you, just so you know. And how you show up for us and the community, and how you run the group, and how you're so supportive. You always call on people to talk, even if they're a little shy and a little quiet. And as a new person coming into the group, very welcoming. I didn't feel like I had to come for 10 weeks in a row or 10 episodes to actually have the chance to speak. You brought me in right away. And I just love how welcoming the two of you are as leaders of the group. And you just have a great group of people there. So to everyone listening that attends the Mike group, I just thank you for allowing a Canadian to sneak in.
Oh my God, is someone cutting onions? Because my eyes are watering.
It's amazing, Vic. And I truly mean it. You two are just great leaders, and you just really care about us. So on behalf of the group, I get to be that today. Thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely. I'm not very good with compliments.
It's well-meaning and you well-deserved as well. Vic, what's your last thing for a podcaster struggling with starting a show? They're here listening to us going, it'd be great if I had a podcast, but I just don't feel like I have it in me to be a podcaster. Give us some words of encouragement as we leave, Vic. What would you say to that person struggling with their voice, their message, starting? They just don't feel like they have it.
There's three things to think about. And there's one thing not to worry about. So the one thing not to worry about is equipment. Don't worry about that yet. Don't worry about your microphones yet. You can get a cheap microphone on eBay, a second-hand one. My first microphone, this one that I'm showing now that you can't see, this blue snowball thing, I saw this in the window of a pawnbroker's, and I was like, I'm having that. 25 quid. It's usually they're usually about £80, these blue snowball things. Anyway, so don't worry about your kit. The second thing to worry about is shaping a great idea and thinking about who it's for, why you're doing it, and what's the hook for people to listen, and what links those two things together. What could you create that's going to achieve your why and really sing to your who? And what makes that compelling? And once you've shaped a great idea, then think about shaping your episodes and then start worrying about your equipment.
The best way to be a podcaster is to be a podcaster.
Absolutely. And then get yourself doing it. Get yourself doing it.
Get going and find a community to fall in love with.
But it took me 18 months to launch my first podcast because I gave myself every excuse under the sun. Like I wasn't good enough. It's people are going to laugh at me and I'm going to mess it up. And the Vic before compared to the Vic after she launched a podcast, it's like, check you out. Look what you've just done. You've done it. You've done it. And no one thinks you're a dick.
Right. You did it.
Did it.
Yes. And then, like I said, join a community.
Join a community.
Meet other people just like you. Realize you're not alone. And never podcast alone.
That's going to be our new slogan. Mike's Podcast Club. Never podcast alone. I love it. This has been a great workshop.
Right? Come on. I love it. So I will be there. I will be there for the next one and ongoing. It's in my calendar all the time. I make sure that I make time for you guys because I just want to meet up with everybody. I love it.
And I feel absolutely blessed because you've got not much time and we take your time for 2 hours every month. So I feel blessed that you're carving out that time for us, Dave. I do mean that.
Everyone, as always, show notes are complete with all the links that we talked about. And I would encourage you to go check out Vic. Go check out her amazing podcast services as well. I'm sure she'd love to talk to you. And come and chat with us over at the meetup group. We have a chair empty, waiting for you.
Warmed.
It's waiting for your spot. It's all warmed, ready to go. You'll get free tea virtually and maybe even some fish and chips.
Maybe some fish and chips from the fish and chip van.
Vic, thank you for making time for me. I really appreciate you taking time to come on the show and be my guest co-host. Let's have you back in the future. I'd love to touch base and see where you're going with your journey.
Defo. Would love to.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcast with you. You have some homework to do. What I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcast. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review. Do the follow. Go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast. Because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So, go over and listen to our guest co-host episode. and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode.